Stay outside until you learn some respect. My dad didn't raise his voice when he said it. He didn't need to. The way he looked at me, like I was a problem he could just shut out, hurt more than yelling ever could. The door closed in my face with a quiet click, like it was nothing, like I was nothing. I stood there on the front porch, the cold air wrapping around me, slipping through my hoodie, biting at my skin. It was early evening, maybe 42 degrees, but it felt colder than that. The kind of cold that settles into your chest and stays there. Inside, I could still hear them. Plates clinking. Vanessa laughing softly like everything was perfectly normal. Like I wasn't standing right outside the same house I grew up in. I didn't knock. I didn't beg. I just stood there, staring at the front door, waiting for it to open again. It didn't. The porch light flickered above me, buzzing faintly, casting a weak yellow glow across the steps. I watched my breath turn into thin clouds in the air, one after another, like time passing in slow motion. 5 minutes felt like forever. 10 minutes felt like a decision being made without me. I wrapped my arms tighter around myself, trying to stay warm, but it wasn't just the cold anymore. It was the silence. The realization that no one was coming back for me. This wasn't about respect. This was about pushing me out. And deep down, I knew this wasn't the first time. It was just the first time it was this obvious. A car passed by slowly, headlights sweeping across the house, then disappearing into the distance. I looked down the street, empty, quiet, like the whole neighborhood had agreed not to see this. Not to see me. Then, from far away, I saw a different kind of light. Bright. Steady. Getting closer. At first, I thought it was just another car. But it didn't pass. It slowed. Then it turned. And then it pulled up right in front of the house. A long, black limo. Clean. Silent. Out of place in a quiet suburban street like ours. The engine idled low, almost like it was waiting. I straightened slightly without meaning to, my eyes fixed on it. The driver stepped out first, dressed in a dark suit, moving with quiet precision. Then the back door opened, and she stepped out. My grandmother, Margaret Whitmore. She didn't rush. She never did. Her silver hair perfectly set, her coat draped neatly over her shoulders, like she had stepped out of a different world entirely. She looked at me first, just one glance. And in that glance, she saw everything. Then her eyes shifted to the house. The same house I'd just been shut out of. Her lips curved slightly, not a smile, not quite. Something colder. Something knowing. I see, she said quietly. And in that moment, standing there in the cold, I realized something had just changed. Not for me. For them. I did not move right away when she stepped out of the limo. For a second, I just stood there, unsure if I was still supposed to feel small, or if something had shifted and I just had not caught up yet. The cold was still there, pressing against my skin, but it felt different now, like it had lost some of its weight. My grandmother's eyes stayed on the house a moment longer before she looked back at me, her gaze steady, calm, and impossibly sharp. "How long have you been out here?" she asked, her voice low, controlled, the kind of voice that did not need to be loud to be heard. I swallowed before answering. "I'm not sure. Maybe 15 minutes. She gave a small nod, as if confirming something to herself rather than reacting to me. 15 minutes too long, she said quietly. She did not rush to wrap me in comfort or ask if I was all right. That was not her way. Instead, she turned her attention back to the front door, studying it like it was part of a larger problem she had already begun solving. Behind us, the limo engine hummed softly, the driver standing still, waiting for instructions that had not yet been spoken. Inside the house, the laughter continued. It was faint, but still there. Distant. Detached. Like it belonged to another world entirely. My grandmother took one slow step forward, her heels clicking lightly against the concrete, precise and measured. I found myself following half a step behind without thinking, like I had done when I was a child and she would visit, bringing that same quiet authority into every room she entered. The porch light flickered again. As we approached the door, casting shadows that stretched and shifted across the siding. She did not knock immediately. She paused, just long enough to let the silence settle into something heavier, something intentional. Then she reached out and pressed the doorbell once. Not repeatedly, not impatiently, just once. We waited. Footsteps approached from inside, quick at first, then slowing as they got closer, as if whoever was coming already sensed that something was different. The door opened halfway, and Vanessa appeared, her expression already forming a polite smile that froze the second she saw who was standing there. For a brief moment, no one spoke. The air seemed to hold its breath. Vanessa's eyes flicked from me to my grandmother, and something in her posture shifted, subtle but undeniable. "Mrs. Whitmore," she said, her tone changing instantly, smoothing itself into something careful, almost rehearsed. My grandmother did not return the smile. She did not step back. She did not soften. She simply looked at Vanessa the way she had looked at the house moments earlier, like she was assessing value, not emotion. "Good evening," she said evenly. Her gaze moved past Vanessa, into the house, taking in whatever she could see beyond the doorway. Then, without raising her voice, she added, "I believe there has been a misunderstanding." Behind Vanessa, I could see my father now, standing in the hallway, his expression unreadable at first, then tightening as recognition set in. He had not expected this. None of them had. And for the first time that night, I was not the one standing outside of something. They were. My father stepped closer, stopping just behind Vanessa, like he needed her there to steady himself. I had seen that before. Not the movement itself, but what it meant. Ever since she came into our lives, he did not stand alone anymore. "Mom," he said, his voice careful now, almost too careful, "we were not expecting you tonight." My grandmother tilted her head slightly, as if the sentence did not quite interest her. "Clearly," she replied, her tone even, untouched by his attempt to regain control. Her eyes moved from him to the doorway again, then to me, still standing just behind her shoulder. She did not gesture for me to step forward. She did not need to. The space she created made it obvious where I belonged. Inside, not out. Here. Vanessa shifted her weight, her hand still resting on the edge of the door, as if she was deciding whether to open it wider or close it completely. "There is no misunderstanding," she said quickly, her voice smooth but tight underneath. "Emily was being disrespectful, and Daniel was just trying to teach her a lesson." The word lesson hung in the air, thin and fragile. My grandmother let a small silence form after that, just long enough for the word to lose whatever strength Vanessa thought it had. Then she stepped forward, not aggressively, not abruptly, just one deliberate step that changed everything about the distance between us and the doorway. Vanessa moved back without meaning to. The door opened wider. My grandmother did not look at her when she spoke again. She was looking at my father now. "A lesson," she repeated softly, as if testing the word. "That is an interesting choice." My father straightened slightly, trying to recover something that was already slipping. "She needs boundaries," he said, more firmly this time, like he was reminding himself as much as her. "This is my house, and I decide what is acceptable here." The moment he said it, I felt something shift again, deeper this time. Not in me, in her. My grandmother's expression did not change, but the air did. It cooled, sharpened, focused. She held his gaze for a long second, not challenging him, not interrupting him, just letting his words settle into place. Then, very calmly, she asked, "Daniel, would you mind repeating that last part for me?" He hesitated, just for a fraction of a second. It was enough. "This is my house," he said again, slower now, like the words did not fit as easily the second time. My grandmother nodded once, as if she had been waiting for that confirmation. "Your house," she echoed quietly. Behind him, the dining room light cast a warm glow over the table. Plates were still out, glasses half full. Everything looked normal. Everything looked like it had not been interrupted at all. And yet nothing about this moment was normal anymore. My grandmother's hand moved slightly, not toward the door, not toward me, but toward her coat pocket, where she kept things she only reached for when necessary. She did not take anything out. Not yet. She simply let her hand rest there, a quiet reminder that whatever came next had already been decided long before she arrived. "Then perhaps," she said, her voice steady and precise, "it is time we clarify exactly whose house this is." No one spoke right away after she said it. The words did not need to be loud to land exactly where they were meant to. My father's expression shifted, just slightly, like something inside him had tightened. Vanessa let out a small laugh, the kind that tries to smooth over a moment before it becomes something else. "I think there is some confusion," she said quickly, stepping forward half a step, as if positioning herself between my father and whatever this was becoming. "Daniel handles everything here. The mortgage, the bills, Yes," my grandmother interrupted softly, not raising her voice, not even looking at her. I am aware of what Daniel handles. The interruption was gentle, but it cut cleanly through whatever Vanessa had been about to build. The silence that followed was different now. Heavier. Intentional. My father shifted his stance, folding his arms briefly before letting them fall again, like he could not quite settle into a position that felt secure. "Mom, if this is about Emily, we can handle it," he said, trying to regain control of the conversation, to bring it back into familiar territory. "She just needs to understand how things work here." My grandmother's eyes moved to me for a brief second, then back to him. "I am certain she is beginning to understand exactly how things work," she said. There was no anger in her voice. No accusation. Just clarity. The kind that did not leave room for interpretation. She reached into her coat, then, slowly, deliberately, and this time she did take something out. A slim leather folder, worn at the edges in a way that suggested it had been used many times before, always for something important. She held it in one hand, but did not open it yet. She let them see it first. Let the presence of it settle into the space between us. Vanessa's eyes dropped to it immediately, her posture tightening in a way she could not fully hide. My father noticed too, his gaze sharpening, calculating now instead of dismissive. "What is that supposed to be?" he asked, his tone more guarded than before. My grandmother tilted her head slightly, as if considering. How much explanation was necessary? "Documentation," she said simply. One word. Enough. She opened the folder with calm precision, flipping it open just enough to glance at the top page before looking back up at him. "You mentioned this is your house," she continued, her voice steady, measured, each word placed exactly where it needed to be. "I thought it might be helpful to revisit that statement with the benefit of complete information." The porch light flickered again, briefly illuminating the paper in her hand, the faint outline of official stamps and signatures visible even from where I stood. My father did not step closer. He did not ask to see it. Not yet. But something in his face had already changed. The certainty was gone. In its place was something quieter, something uncertain. Vanessa glanced at him, then back at the folder, her lips pressing together as if she was trying to hold a thought in place before it slipped out. Inside the house, the laughter had stopped. Completely. The silence from within was now as loud as the silence outside had been just minutes ago. My grandmother closed the folder again without handing it over. She did not need to. Not yet. "Before we continue," she said calmly, "I would like Emily to come inside." It was not a request. It was not framed as one. It simply existed, waiting to be followed. And for the first time that night, no one argued. For a moment, no one moved, like the house itself was waiting to see who would break first. Then my father stepped back. It was not dramatic. It was not loud. Just a small shift of his weight, a half step to the side that cleared the doorway. But that was all it took. The space opened. My grandmother did not look at him as she walked forward. She did not acknowledge the hesitation or the tension that still lingered in the air. She simply stepped inside, and I followed. The warmth hit me immediately, wrapping around me in a way that felt almost unfamiliar after standing outside. The lights were bright, steady, nothing like the flickering porch light I had just left behind. Everything looked exactly as it had before. The table set, plates half finished, glasses still on the counter. It was like the evening had continued without interruption, like I had never been part of it to begin with. I paused just inside the doorway, my shoes still on the welcome mat, unsure if I should move further or stay where I was. My grandmother did not pause. She walked straight into the living room, her presence shifting the atmosphere with every step, not through force, but through certainty. Vanessa closed the door behind us slowly, her movements controlled but tight, like she was trying to contain something that had already slipped beyond her reach. "There is no need to make this into something bigger than it is," she said, her voice softer now, more careful, but there was a sharp edge underneath that had not been there before. My grandmother stopped near the center of the room and turned to face them, the leather folder still in her hand. "I agree," she said calmly. "There is no need to make it bigger, only clearer." My father remained near the hallway, his posture rigid, his eyes moving between me and the folder, as if he was trying to calculate something that no longer added up the way he expected. "If this is about paperwork," he began, his tone measured, controlled, "we can review it another time." My grandmother shook her head once, slow and deliberate. "No," she said quietly. This is precisely the time. The silence that followed felt different now. Not uncertain. Not waiting. Decided. She set the folder down on the coffee table with a soft, deliberate motion, then opened it fully, turning it so it faced them instead of her. She did not push it toward them. She simply let it sit there, visible, undeniable. My father did not step forward. Not yet. Vanessa glanced at him, then at the papers, her expression tightening as if she already knew what she was about to see but did not want it confirmed. I stayed where I was, just inside the doorway, watching everything unfold without being told where I belonged. And for the first time that night, I did not feel like I was outside anything. I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. My grandmother rested her hand lightly on the edge of the table, her gaze steady, her voice even. "Daniel," she said, not raising her voice, not softening it either. "Before you say anything else about what belongs to you, I suggest you take a closer look." My father did not move at first. He stood there, staring at the folder like it might disappear if he waited long enough. Then, slowly, he stepped forward. Each step felt measured, careful, like he was walking into something he could no longer avoid. He reached the coffee table and looked down at the documents without touching them, his eyes scanning the top page, the official seals, the signatures that carried more weight than any argument he could make. Vanessa moved closer too, just a step behind him, her posture tight, her hands clasped together as if holding herself steady. The room was completely silent now. Even the faint sounds from outside had faded, leaving nothing but the quiet presence of what was right in front of us. My father finally reached out and picked up the top sheet, his fingers slower than usual, like they no longer belonged to someone who was certain. His eyes moved across the page once, then again, more carefully this time. I watched his expression change, not dramatically, but enough. The confidence that had been there earlier was gone. In its place was something else, something unsettled. "This does not mean what you think it means," Vanessa said quickly, her voice cutting into the silence before it could deepen further. She leaned slightly toward him, as if trying to guide his understanding, to reshape it before it fully formed. My grandmother did not react to her. She did not interrupt. She simply watched, allowing the moment to unfold exactly as it needed to. My father lowered the paper slightly, his gaze still fixed on it, like he was searching for a detail that would undo what he was beginning to realize. "The property," he started, his voice quieter now, less certain. "It is in your name?" My grandmother gave a small nod. "It has always been in my name," she said. There was no emphasis, no need to underline the statement. The truth spoke for itself. Vanessa's composure cracked just slightly. "That is not relevant," she said, faster now, her tone losing some of its control. "Daniel has been paying for everything. The upkeep, the taxes, the usage does not equal ownership," my grandmother replied calmly, her voice steady, precise, cutting through the explanation without raising in volume. The words settled heavily in the room. My father set the paper back down, but he did not step away. He stood there, staring at the folder, as if the space beneath his feet had shifted in a way he could not correct. "You never said anything," he muttered, more to himself than to her. My grandmother's expression remained unchanged. "You never asked," she answered. There was no accusation in her tone, just fact. Clean. Final. I stood near the doorway, watching the distance between them grow even as they stood in the same room. It was not physical distance. It was something deeper, something that could not be closed by stepping closer. Vanessa took another step forward, her voice sharper now, more urgent. "This does not change anything," she insisted. "This is still our home. We live here. We decide what happens here." My grandmother turned her gaze to her then, fully this time, not dismissing her, not overlooking her, but addressing her directly for the first time. "That," she said quietly, "is exactly what is about to change." Vanessa's words lingered in the air, but they no longer carried the weight she intended. They sounded thinner now, stretched too far to hold together. My grandmother did not respond immediately. She let the silence settle again, not as hesitation, but as control. Then she walked slowly past the coffee table, her steps unhurried, her posture straight, as if she had already moved beyond the argument and into the outcome. My father turned slightly to follow her with his eyes, uncertainty now fully visible in the way he held himself. "What exactly are you saying?" he asked, his voice lower than before, no longer steady, no longer certain of where he stood. My grandmother stopped near the window, the soft glow of the streetlights outlining her figure against the glass. She looked outside for a brief moment, as if acknowledging something beyond this room, then turned back to face him. "I am saying," she began, her voice calm and precise, "that decisions made in this house will reflect the authority of the person who owns it." She did not raise her voice. She did not need to. The statement settled heavily, leaving no space for reinterpretation. Vanessa let out a sharp breath, her composure slipping further. "This is absurd," she said, her tone tightening. "You cannot just walk in here and change everything overnight." My grandmother's gaze met hers, steady and unwavering. "No," she replied quietly. "I did not change anything. I am simply acknowledging what has always been true." The difference between those two statements was small in words, but enormous in meaning. My father ran a hand through his hair, his movements restless now, like he was trying to catch up to something that had already passed him. "We have been living here for years," he said, almost defensively. "We built our life here." My grandmother nodded once, not dismissing his words, but not yielding to them either. "You have been allowed to live here," she said. "There is a difference." The room went still again. Not the uncertain stillness from before, but something sharper, more defined. Vanessa's eyes flicked toward me briefly, then back to my grandmother, as if searching for a way to pull the situation back into something she could manage. "So what now?" she asked, her voice quieter but edged with frustration. "Are you going to tell us how to run our own home?" My grandmother did not answer right away. She walked back toward the coffee table, her gaze passing over the documents, then lifting to my father again. "I am going to make one thing clear," she said. "No one who belongs in this family will be treated as if they are outside of it." Her eyes shifted to me for a brief second, then returned to him. That was all it took. The meaning was unmistakable. My father looked at me then, really looked at me, not as a problem to correct, but as something he had overlooked, something he had allowed to be pushed aside. And for the first time that night, he did not speak right away. My grandmother let that moment sit between us, then added, her voice just as calm, just as steady. "If that expectation cannot be met, then we will need to discuss new arrangements." She did not explain what those arrangements were. She did not need to. The implication was clear enough to change everything without another word. No one answered her right away. The words "new arrangements" settled into the room like something solid, something that could not be ignored or talked around. My father's shoulders lowered slightly, not in defeat, but in realization, like he was finally understanding the weight of what had been said. He glanced at Vanessa, then back at my grandmother, as if searching for a way to respond that would not make things worse. "That is not necessary," he said finally, his voice quieter now, stripped of the certainty it had carried earlier. "We can handle this. Emily can come inside. There is no need to take it further." My grandmother did not react to the shift in his tone. She had already seen it coming. "She should have been inside from the beginning," she replied calmly. Not accusatory, not emotional, just true. Vanessa crossed her arms, her composure tightening again, but it was different this time. Less controlled, more reactive. "This is being blown out of proportion," she said, her voice sharp but no longer steady. It was a simple lesson. She disrespected her father. My grandmother turned her gaze to her again, fully this time, and held it there long enough for the room to fall completely still. "Respect," she said softly, repeating the word as if examining it, "is not taught by exclusion." The sentence landed with a quiet finality that left no space for argument. My father exhaled slowly, his eyes shifting toward me again, then back to the floor for a brief moment before lifting to meet my grandmother's gaze. "You are right," he said, the words coming out carefully, like they cost him something to say. "This should not have happened." It was not an apology. Not yet. But it was the first step toward one. My grandmother gave a small nod, acknowledging the shift without praising it. "Then we are moving in the right direction," she said. The tension in the room did not disappear, but it changed. It loosened, just slightly, enough to let something else take its place. Awareness. Consequence. Vanessa looked between them, her expression tightening as she realized the ground she had been standing on was no longer stable. "So that is it?" she asked, her voice lower now, more controlled again, but with an edge that had not been there before. "You show up, wave a piece of paper, and everything changes?" My grandmother did not look at the folder this time. She looked directly at her. "No," she said quietly. "Everything was already what it is. You are simply seeing it clearly now." The distinction settled heavily in the space between them. My father remained still, his posture no longer defensive, but not fully at ease either. He looked at me again, longer this time, and there was something different in his expression. Not authority, not control, something closer to recognition. My grandmother stepped slightly to the side then, creating a clear path into the rest of the house, her presence no longer blocking anything, but guiding it. "Emily," she said, her voice steady, not loud, but certain. "Go ahead." It was a simple instruction, but it carried more weight than anything that had been said all evening. I hesitated for only a second, then took a step forward, then another, moving past the doorway, past the place where I had been stopped before. No one said anything as I walked further into the room. No one told me to stop. And for the first time that night, it did not feel like I was being allowed in. It felt like I had always belonged there. The room did not return to normal after that. It could not. Something had been uncovered that could not be placed back the way it was. I walked further in, past the living room, past the edge of the coffee table where the folder still lay open, its contents no longer hidden, no longer something that could be ignored. My footsteps were quiet against the floor, but they felt louder in my own mind, like each step marked a shift I could not undo. I stopped near the dining table, looking at the half-finished plates, the glasses, the small details that had once felt like home. Now they felt like evidence of something else, something I had not fully seen until tonight. Behind me, no one spoke. My father remained where he was, standing between two versions of himself, the one who had closed the door and the one who now understood what that meant. Vanessa did not move either, her posture tight, her eyes fixed on the space between my grandmother and the folder, as if she was still searching for a way to reverse what had already happened. My grandmother walked into the room last, her steps steady, unhurried, as if she had already finished what she came to do. She did not look at the documents again. She did not need to. She looked at me, just once, and in that look, there was no question, no doubt, only acknowledgement. I held her gaze for a second, then looked away, not because I felt small, but because I did not need to prove anything anymore. The silence stretched, but it was no longer heavy. It was clear, defined. My father finally spoke, his voice lower than I had ever heard it. "Emily," he said, and for a moment, he paused, like he was deciding what to say next. The pause said more than the words. "You can stay inside." The sentence was simple, too simple. It echoed faintly in the room, lacking something it should have had from the beginning. I did not answer right away. I did not look back at him. I just stood there, taking in the space around me, the place that had always been mine, even when I had been made to feel like it was not. My grandmother turned slightly toward the door, her attention already shifting forward, not backward. "That will not be necessary," she said quietly. My father looked at her, confusion crossing his face. "What do you mean?" he asked. She did not raise her voice. She did not need to. "Emily will not be staying here tonight," she said. The words settled into the room, final and unmistakable. I felt something shift inside me, not fear, not uncertainty. Something steadier, something clearer. My father took a step forward, his expression tightening. "Mom, that is not what I meant," he said quickly. "She can stay. We can fix this." My grandmother met his gaze, calm and unmoved. "Some things are not fixed by staying in the same place," she replied. There was no anger in her voice, only certainty. Vanessa did not speak. For the first time that night, she had nothing to say. My grandmother turned toward me then, her expression unchanged, her presence steady as ever. "Come," she said simply. No explanation, no persuasion, just a direction forward. I did not hesitate. I turned, walking past the table, past the room, past the place where everything had shifted. As I reached the doorway, I glanced back once. My father was still standing there, the folder still on the table, the truth still open in front of him. But I did not stay long enough to see what he would do next. I stepped outside, the cold air meeting me again, but it did not feel the same anymore. This time, I was not being sent out. This time, I was leaving.